So we're here in Queally's kitchen on the Monday of the Willie Clancy week, and the ITMA is delighted to have access to this famous public house, which is a centre of music over very many years, and we're delighted that Pádraic has given us permission to film here and his fond memories of his mum and dad, Tom and Baby, over many years here. And I'm delighted to welcome very old friends who, again, were very familiar with this house over many years, the McCarthy family, Bernadette, Jacqueline, Marion and Tommy. So welcome back to Queally's.
Thank you. A pleasure.
We're delighted you're all here and you brought your instruments. And I mean, at present, Jacqueline and Marion, you're living in Galway. Bernadette, you live in Miltown. And Tommy, you split your time between Boston and Galway, but mostly Boston based. But the story begins really with, as regards your family, as regards your dad, Tommy Sr., who was a very close friend of me and my family as well. So he went to England in the early 50s, like a lot of men, and so again, you grew up in London. So tell us about that in the early years, Jacqueline.
He actually had a job here. He worked for Mangans in Ennis, and he just wanted to travel. And he heard that there was music in London, so he just got a ticket, gave up his job, and went to London. And that was 1950, but then when he got there, he discovered there was nothing. It was so depressed. It was just after the war, there was ration books, everyone was depressed. So he stayed for a few months and came back again. And when he was in the port in Dunleary, he met this man that he knew, and he said, oh, you know, how are things? And he told him he'd just come back from London and there was nothing. So he said, oh, hang on, I'll make a phone call. I might have a job for you on Monday, you know. So he went away and came back. He said, I've got a job in a place called Garvey's in Glenamaddy, which was like one of these hardware places. So he went down there on the Monday, and he was there about a week. And no, Glenamaddy, especially then, was not a place for Irish music, maybe other types of music. But this man came up to him one day and asked him, would he play the fiddle? They were having a small concert. And could he play for these girls dancing, 4 girls dancing? And anyway, they got up and danced, and one of them is our mother.
So that's where the love story began.
That's where the love story began.
And your dad was playing, what was he playing at that stage?
He was playing the fiddle, I think, then, right. Yeah. And then they stayed there for 2 years, and I think he was quite happy there, you know. And then they decided to go to London. But he said the difference in 2 years was unbelievable. That's everyone's spirit had lifted. There was loads of work because rebuilding after the war. Everyone was in London. That's what I think he met Willie Clancy for the first time, and Seamus Ennis, Máirtín Byrnes, Maggie Barry, Bobby Casey. I don't want to leave anyone out. Everyone, right?
Gorman. Oh, yeah.
Michael Gorman, and everyone from all over Ireland that he wouldn't have met before. You know, it would have been just locals. So. That's how it started, and they got married in London, and then we were born, and
the rest is history.
The rest is history, yeah.
So obviously he spent a long time in London, and he found it was great to have a musical community there. So during the 50s and 60s, I mean, who were the people he was most playing with and most attached with?
Probably Bobby Casey, yeah.
Bobby, yeah.
They were kind of a duo, weren't they?
They played together for 40 years.
40 odd years.
And then when we started playing music, we ended up playing in folk clubs with my dad, and then Bobby Casey wasn't playing as much, so
yeah, he joined
Dad looked at a bigger picture, so he played at a lot of the folk clubs and theatres, so he just didn't go to the Irish bars. He was very open to all the cultures that we lived among.
The folk
society loved him.
And he played the pipes and concertina.
Yeah,
he
was a piper in London.
He always said his most favourite instrument was the pipes, you know. He played a lot with Maggie Barry, actually. They did a lot of folk clubs, and Michael Gorman, and they did... This Is Your Life once for Noel Purcell. Do you know the old Dublin actor? They did that, and they played at some of the Guinness's weddings, and there's a lot of funny stories. But yeah, he used to play a lot with Maggie Barry.
And so you're playing 4 different instruments, and I mean, did he say to you, I'd like you to play the fiddle or whatever, or did it just naturally... what happened?
That's another story.
No, I just wanted to be a rock star already at the start. I think you might have been around that part, but I think I was probably just turning into a teenager, and then I realised, well, I better get my act together here, or I'll be the black sheep of the family. So I took to the fiddle, you know. But I've been playing mandolin and guitar and various strings.
So you were in the string kind of family.
I was in the string thing.
Yeah.
But,
Did Bobby teach you?
well, he'd come up to the house and he'd get whiskey, and then it'd be.
So you had 3 older sisters, are kind of a bit of a slight pressure. You better.
Well, they were already a band before I came along, like you know. So I was.
But he didn't set out to teach. He didn't expect any of us to play. Really, he wasn't that kind of person. But it just happened. We did the recorder at Scoil. I did the recorder at Scoil, and then he was playing the fiddle for Irish dancing. And my mum said, "You may as well go along." And then I started picking up the tunes. Obviously, they'd come into my head on the recorder, and the nun wasn't that impressed with Irish tunes. So then that's how I started.
But also the concertina that he bought for you.
Yeah.
That's when you were 9.
You know, in Ireland at the time, there wasn't really. I don't think there was anyone selling concertinas or repairing them. So because Dad came from that part of Kilmihil, of Clare, Kilmihil, there was a load of concertina players that were all taught by this man. Anytime they wanted to buy a concertina, they'd write to my dad or want something repaired. So there was a man called Sullis Lillis, and he wrote over to my dad with the concertina in a plastic bag and said, "Would you have this looked at for me?" So my dad would go down to Harry Crabb, who was in Islington at the time. He had a shop in Liverpool Road. And actually the shop front is still there. It's not a house now, but the shop front is still there. But so my dad knew Harry Crabb quite well. And he brought this concertina down and went back 3 months later to pick it up and saw, not this concertina, but another one that I play, saw up on the shelf. And it was in behind in a glass shelf with a key, you know. And he asked him how much it was. And it was a small one. So he said it's £25. That was 1967. So my dad bought it and brought it home. And straight away, I think we'd been learning My Bunny Lies Over the Ocean in school on the recorder. And straight away I started transferring it onto the concertina. And, you know, and probably loads of bum notes as well. And my mum, because I was the oldest, and then Marion, and then Bernadette, and then there was a baby, and the washing machine, and the radio, and the noise. And my mum said, "Take that thing out here, I can't go with any more noise." Anyway, we won the battle and kept it.
That was the little one
The little one.
For years.
Yeah, and I still play that. And the reason it was so small, it wasn't because it was made for a child. It was made for this man called Sir Kenneth Lovelace, who was head of the English Folk and Dance Society. He was, wait a minute, 3 titles. He was the Dean of Hackney, and he was also a chaplain in submarines in the Second World War. And he had it made specially small to put into submarines.
All right.
And so...
Play it underwater.
Huh?
You could play it underwater.
Yeah. So that's so.
So you just kind of it just kind of evolved. The instruments you just picked. It wasn't. There was no grand plan by your dad.
We used to go to folk clubs, and I had learned classical piano. And when you go to these folk clubs, you'd expect a piano, which there never was. And if there was, it was always out of tune. So I decided I better take up an instrument. So that's how I picked up the fiddle.
Yeah.
And how I learnt was from the likes of, our house was very open to musicians, and Bobby Casey would have spent a lot of time. So it was basically, you'd play a tune and he'd say, "Oh!" Put an A in there, or a D in there, or an F. And then James Kelly would arrive as well. And so it was just very, very simple, very natural. We never had formal lessons, but
piano only.
And the other thing is, because Dad was the adventurous, curious man that he was, he brought us to places, and we just loved being in his company, because you could go to, he'd say, "Girls, we're going here tonight." You could be in a traveller's caravan, you could be at a rock stars party, you could be a poetry recital. You never knew where you were going, and that was
He didn't either half the time.
He didn't know. He had the problem of not knowing to say no. It worked in our favour because we had the most exciting children alive. And you know, when you get to teenagers, they're all worried about asking Mother, "Dear, can we go to a disco?" You know, we got a chance. We were allowed to go to every disco, but when we got there, we said, "Is this it?" We'd much rather go out with our dad.
More fun.
So he was obviously a unique man, and he was much more open-minded than
Extremely.
many of his contemporaries at the time, where you would have had very focused.
And we lived in a
regimented
very
music.
multicultural area in Haringey where there was Greeks, Turks, and he loved all those cultures. So as a result, we had a fantastic life and was exposed to all these cultures. So migration and all these people coming to London was
Yeah, so you kind of benefit from the multicultural
very much
Yeah.
so.
environment that you were in
Very
London.
much
So,
so.
so you grew up, you did your own thing, and then all of you left London. And Bernadette, you're here in Miltown. Jacqueline and Marion, you settled in Galway, and Tommy, you're in Boston. And again, you go back to London from time to time, I think, because you've gone back to do concerts in various places.
Yeah.
You see, Dad really believed in where he came from, and it was really of great importance that he took his family back to Ireland for the month of August. So we'd go to Glenamaddy, which was country and western, but we always felt as children that coming to Clare we were an island.
Yeah, that's
And
right.
then, so he would bring us to Miltown, and the first stop would be Willie Clancy, and we'd go to Maisie Friel's, and that's where we heard all the legends playing music, the Seamus Ennises and Junior Cranes, and so
Actually, the
many.
first stop in Ireland was John Kelly's shop in Cable Street.
That was
In Dublin, you'd be
In
driving on the
Dublin, when we
ferry.
got off the boat, that was
Yeah.
the first stop, and in the days when you could park outside the door, you know, and my dad would go, "I'll be in here now, just 2 minutes," and 5 hours later.
Right.
Remember one time he said, well, we're going to visit some people, and he brought us out to Ballyfermot.
Oh, yeah.
To the Keenans. Well, I mean, 4 children from London, and we arrived in this halting site. I thought it was the most exciting thing in the world, and everyone was firing stones at us and things like that. But that was the kind of journey and the adventures.
My dad was having a cup of tea with Paddy's father.
Yeah.
And he was there for
I
ages.
went in, but
You
Mum,
would.
Mum
you?
did. Yeah,
Mum
I did,
would
but
get
Mum
out
wouldn't
the
get out of the
car.
car, would she?
Yeah.
So that was it. So when we came to Miltown, and then our mother was a very forward thinker, and she bought a house on the Mullock Road in Miltown in 1975. And
That's the one down
this
Mullock Road.
Mullock Road.
Yeah.
It was a bungalow, and she never thought, she bought it because she was that kind of woman, and it's where 3 of her daughters left to get married. The Miltown, well, including yourself, Pádraic.
That's true. Oh, yes, that's true.
So we all
It's funny
got
because that
married.
was so they bought a house on the basis it was going to be a holiday home, but they
Holiday
didn't
home.
predict that all the family were actually going to
No.
Yeah.
come back.
Yeah.
So it
And
was
settled.
the love,
Yeah.
the love that they gave us
Yeah.
for Ireland, and then we all decided we will move back. They would never have left London because they had such a great life.
Mm.
But we all moved back, and then grandchildren started. So that's when they came, and they followed us. So we did everything.
Yeah,
the
because
opposite
Tom and
way.
Kathleen, as I say, they moved back after you guys had moved to
Yeah.
Yeah, they
various
followed
places.
us, which was unusual.
Yeah.
Reluctantly, really, because they loved their life in London, didn't
They had a
they?
brilliant life.
Had a good life, yeah.
You know,
We still-
you had a chance to play music with the chieftains and theatres and that. So
Yeah, no, but obviously when you come back, then there was a family draw, and the next generation. I mean, all your kids are playing music and are well regarded, highly, you know, pipes, fiddle, all the different instruments, which is great, and you've kind of spread around the world as well.
Say that,
Various
please.
doing their
10,
bits.
10 grandchildren.
Yes, and and I know there's great photographs of Tommy Senior with I think Annie and Lucy and playing tin whistle like in classes,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and obviously he's the adoring grandfather.
And he
Yeah.
taught his grandchildren just like he taught us,
Yeah,
which was lovely. The tradition followed.
Yeah.
So that's so.
No
it's all-
notes, just
no notes, just notes.
just by ear.
Just
Yeah,
by ear.
He'd be
and-
listening from the next room, and he'd say, "Oh, that's not right there," and that was his way of doing it.
Yeah.
Oh, she has what it takes.
So again, you've been in Miltown for quite a number of years, and you've been
34
playing.
years.
Wow, long time. And so again, you've been playing with various people over many years. You know, mostly in Friels, and you're still playing strong. And you were playing. I mean, both of you are in Galway. And
Yeah, we
you've been
moved
playing-
in '87. We were the first, I think. So we were nearly 36 years in August, yeah. And then you came back
About
2 years after.
yeah,
You were in
after that.
Sydney, weren't
I
you?
was in Boston, then Sydney.
And again, and your families are playing music, and they're...
Yeah, Tommy Keane taught 3 boys in the Girls' School in Oramore, which was fantastic because, it's, you know, they had the music from him, and so that's how they...
And that was great, and I've met 2 of them in Boston.
Yeah.
And again, talking of Boston, so that... tell me, how long have you been basically over there?
Since 1986.
Yeah.
We first went, yeah.
And then obviously we knew each other when we lived there, and it was great sessions and that.
Right,
but when you got the Burn as a pub now is a kind of a mecca from Irish music, and it's a very hospitable house, and that's I think I mean your idea behind the Burn is to obviously promote music.
Yeah, that's pretty much what we created the idea. You know, when you were there in the 90s, it was. I mean, there was only one pub really that had music, and that was only like on a Saturday, the Brendan Meehan. And when we arrived in Boston in 1986, there was kind of one session ran by a man called Larry Reynolds from Harscore and Ballinasloe, which was a Kiltis branch. But you know, it was good music. It was a lot of red boxes and old-time guys, you know. But in recent years, I think opening the Burn 27 years ago and sticking it out and keeping the music going, it's brought a lot more musicians to Boston from all parts of America. You know, kids are coming there now to go to college, so there's a vibrant music scene there. And it's not only the Burn now that are doing sessions, it's expanded to downtown, to a couple of bars downtown, and the Druid and Emmett's downtown. So there's, you know, it's great to see that there's, I don't know, there's probably 20 plus young lads playing music and going to college and
the real stuff.
Playing the real music and not have to ask money off their parents. They can survive doing gigs, so it works out for everybody.
Well,
you know.
Liam and Sean, myself, when we were there for the archive, we could see ourselves at the wealth of young people playing music in the Burn and in the other places that you mentioned. And again, the Burn is a place stopping off for well-known musicians, you know, professional musicians like Sharon Shannon and others, Frankie Gavin. You've been strong on promoting that to make sure the Burn is under.
Yeah, the concert series is great to have that, you know. But it's a fantastic music scene in Boston now, and it's I think it's better than ever's been, really, you know, with the mountain musicians. I know it's been history in the 50s, the Dudley Street and the dances and everything, but as far as traditional music sessions go on, it's the best I've seen, and I've been there over 30 years, you know.
And a lot of them, the impression was in your places, quite a lot of them don't have any Irish roots. Yeah. The people playing, they're from different backgrounds.
Yeah, I know, they're all playing great music. I mean, there's musicians showing up and they're playing Bobby Casey music. Obviously, it's YouTube has helped a lot of things, you know, old recordings. But
have they heard Bobby's stories? That's
when we went first to Boston, you'd hear 7 accordions playing the Box of Armor all out of tune together, you know. Quality has definitely improved.
So listen, thanks for coming in. It's great to get the background about your dad and again how you've all ended up here, and we're back in what would have been a mecca for music.
The Queallys, it's just lovely to be here, and if any of
So
those walls could speak. Because we used to come over here on our holidays, and like most people would go on sunny holidays, and we would spend our 2 weeks holiday playing music here. So when we would go back, the office workers where we worked would say, "Where's your suntan?" No suntan, because we spent 12 hours in the
shade.
They wouldn't get it.
Baby would come down the shade and everything. So
our suntan was in Queally's bar playing Irish traditional music that would just love. We had so much fun in this house.
I mean, when we were adults then and living here, and we used to come here on a Sunday whenever we were down in Galway, and my dad, I mean, you used to be here, Pádraic.
Yeah, Sunday morning,
Yeah, and Baby had a room upstairs with toys. All our children and your children,
a basket of toys,
go up there playing. They've got such happy memories of it. And we were down here playing music. It was like a dream come true.
She was a big babysitter, kind of crash.
She was a good businesswoman.
She was fantastic.
She was great.
And Tom,
and the best bouncer in town.
That's right. So listen, I think a few tunes would be a great idea.
Okay.
And I think you've got a couple of jigs. Yeah. So then, on behalf of the archive again, really appreciate giving up your time coming in, and it's great that you could tell the story and the story of your dad and mum as well. And so thanks again. and this will be down for posterity, so we can. Lovely lads. Perfect.